Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. We're going to uncover a concept today that is honestly absolutely fundamental to your daily existence. Because right now, literally in this exact moment, there is this silent, completely invisible force operating your life. It's just humming along in the background, entirely undetected. And you know why? Mostly because you've probably never been taught how to actually see it. It dictates how you move through the world, yet it stays completely out of sight.
So, we have to ask the obvious question, right? What exactly is this hidden force? Well, first off, let's establish what it isn't. It's not fate. It isn't some arbitrary stroke of luck that just magically favors a select few. But it is the exact mechanism that decides what you notice on a daily basis. It literally dictates the opportunities and the people you attract into your orbit. And even more profoundly than that, it determines what you actually believe is possible for your own future.
The answer here is simple, but it is incredibly profound. It's your energy. Now look, most people are going to go their entire lives without ever learning how to recognize, let alone control, this force. But we're going to change that today. By the end of this explainer, you're going to know exactly what your personal energy is, how it actually functions, and most importantly, how to direct it so it serves you instead of, sabotaging you.
But first things first, we absolutely have to strip away the woo-woo mysticism that always seems to surround this topic. Just forget the vague, superstitious version of energy you might have heard about. We need to completely reframe energy as a highly practical, observable state. Think of it as the literal frequency your nervous system is broadcasting to the world before you even open your mouth. Just think about it. When you walk into a room feeling incredibly anxious, people feel it instantly, right? Through subconscious cues. On the flip side, if you walk in super grounded and secure, the entire room kind of just shifts to accommodate you. This isn't magic. It's just basic human biology, and you can observe it in literally every single interaction you've ever had.
So let's break down what actually makes up this practical energy. It's basically a combination of your nervous system state, your tone of voice, your physical posture, and your internal thoughts. When you put all those together, these elements transmit a very real frequency. And the really fascinating truth here is that the world responds to this physical and mental frequency way, way more than it ever responds to the actual words coming out of your mouth. Your baseline state is doing all the heavy lifting in your communication, like 100% of the time.
But here's the main problem we all face. Instead of consciously choosing this frequency, most people are just broadcasting on complete autopilot. They're running a program they never actually chose. This sort of default frequency was just handed to them over the years by childhood conditioning, everyday stress, that modern habit we all have of comparing ourselves to others, and just underlying fear. They're totally trapped in a reactive state.
So, if we're operating on an autopilot handed to us by stress and fear, how is our energy actually being drained on a day-to-day basis? Well, let's uncover the three invisible culprits. We'll call them the silent energy leaks. These are the things actively draining your baseline state every single day, and you probably don't even realize it's happening.
The first massive leak is unprocessed emotion. I want you to think about every feeling of anger, sadness, or frustration that you just suppress instead of moving through. Those feelings don't just magically disappear because you ignore them, right? They sit right there in your body, creating this heavy emotional backlog that quietly and continuously drains your baseline state. And honestly, this perfectly explains why people who seemingly have it all on paper can still feel entirely empty and exhausted. Their emotional backlog has never been cleared out, and it's just sapping their energy from the inside out.
Then we have the second massive leak, misaligned attention. And man, in our modern world, this is such a dangerous trap. Every single time you mindlessly scroll on your phone, every time you fall into that trap of comparing yourself to others, or just consume content that doesn't actively serve your direction, you are literally feeding your precious energy into someone else's life. You're taking the very fuel that should be going toward your own goals, and you're just handing it straight over to distractions instead.
I really want you to take a moment to just absorb this rule of thumb. Attention is energy. Where it goes, your state follows. It is that simple, and it is that absolute. What you choose to pay attention to directly dictates your internal frequency. If you're constantly focusing on chaos, comparison, and negativity, well, your nervous system and your energy state are going to mirror that chaos exactly.
And that brings us to the third, and honestly maybe the most insidious leak of all,
Unclear identity. When you don't have a clear, definitive vision for who you are becoming, every single decision you make costs you a massive amount of energy. Why? Because you are constantly negotiating with yourself. You know the feeling. Should I do this? Is this right for me? What's going to happen if I make this choice? It is literally like having a noisy boardroom meeting in your head for every minor choice. That endless internal debate is incredibly exhausting, and it leaves you with practically zero energy for actual execution.
But see, knowing exactly who you are is actually a highly practical, strategic method for protecting your daily energy reserves. Clarity eliminates that internal negotiation entirely. When you know who you are and where you're going, decisions just become automatic. So clarity isn't just about setting goals. It is absolutely one of the most underrated energy conservation tools that exists in the human toolkit.
All right, so we've identified the leaks. Now, how do we actually fix them? We need to pivot from the problem to the solution, which is reclaiming your frequency. And I want to be super clear here. Reclaiming your energy is not about sitting in a circle, chanting affirmations, and just hoping for the best. No way. It is a highly practical practice. It requires making deliberate, actionable shifts in how you operate day to day. It's all about taking the dial back into your own hands. To do this, we're going to use a really precise 3-step framework that will let you stop living on autopilot once and for all. These 3 deliberate shifts are process, audit, and decide. So let's break down exactly how you can start applying every single one of these starting today.
Step 1 is process. And the rule here is pretty simple. Process instead of suppress. When a difficult emotion rises up, you've got to stop pushing it down. Instead, name it out loud or literally write it down on a piece of paper. I know it sounds too easy, but this incredibly simple act of acknowledging the emotion actually halts the leak. By naming the feeling, you're actively processing it, and you can reset your baseline state within minutes, rather than lugging that heavy emotional backlog around for years.
Step 2 is audit. And I'm going to challenge you to try this for just 1 week. Become acutely aware of your inputs. Track what you're consuming, social media, the news, certain conversations, right before you feel your energy suddenly drain. Once you notice what triggers that drop, ruthlessly remove the source. I promise you, this single 1-week habit of auditing your inputs is going to tell you more about your personal energy leaks than any expensive self-help course ever will.
Finally, we have step 3, which is decide. Remember, energy naturally follows clarity. So you have to decide specifically who you are becoming. And I don't mean some vague goal like, oh, I want to be a better version of myself. I mean a crystal clear, written identity. You need to decide exactly how this future person handles stress, decide how this person speaks, how they act, and how they make decisions. Because when you lock in that level of clarity, your energy just aligns with it instantly.
That invisible force that's been running your life silently in the background, it can absolutely become the force that you run deliberately. But it all starts with noticing, not forcing. So, I want to leave you with this final, critical question to ask yourself today. Are you running your energy, or is your energy running you? It's time to take back the dial. And hey, if this explainer shifted something in your perspective today, be sure to join us next time. We're going to be exploring exactly why incredibly smart, capable people still manage to stay totally stuck, even when they know all of this. See you then.